For centuries, fishermen off the coast of Egypt spoke of stone ruins glimpsed beneath their nets, of columns and statues that seemed to shimmer just out of reach in the murky water. Locals dismissed the stories as folklore, the kind of maritime legend every coastline seems to produce. But in the year 2000, a team of underwater archaeologists switched on their sonar equipment in Aboukir Bay. And what appeared on their screens was not folklore at all. It was a city, a real one. Streets, temples, harbors, and the shattered remains of colossal statues lay scattered across the seafloor, undisturbed for more than 1,000 years. What they found would force historians to reconsider a place many had assumed was pure myth. A city so thoroughly swallowed by the sea that its very existence had drifted into legend. The city was called Thonis-Heracleion, and for nearly 2 millennia, no living person had set eyes on it. Ancient Greek writers reference it in passing, describing a bustling port where the Nile met the Mediterranean, a gateway through which goods, pilgrims, and ideas flow between Egypt and the wider ancient world. Herodotus, the Greek historian often called the father of history, wrote of visiting a temple there dedicated to Heracles, which is how the city came to bear his name in later Greek sources, even though the Egyptians themselves knew it as Thonis. For generations, scholars debated whether Thonis and Heracleion were even the same place, a puzzle that only underwater excavation could finally resolve. The man who led the search was Franck Goddio, a French marine archaeologist who had spent years mapping the seabed near Alexandria before turning his attention to the wider bay. Working with Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, his team used advanced sonar and magnetometer technology to detect anomalies buried beneath layers of silt and sand. What they eventually uncovered exceeded even their most hopeful projections. Massive granite statues of pharaohs, some standing over 16 feet tall, lay toppled on their sides. Stone slabs inscribed with hieroglyphics, still legible after more than 1,000 years underwater, described royal decrees and temple dedications. Ships, dozens of them, remained anchored exactly where they had sunk, their wooden hulls preserved by the oxygen-poor mud that had entombed them. To understand how an entire city could vanish beneath the waves, it helps understand where Thonis-Heracleion once stood. The city occupied a low-lying stretch of the Nile Delta, built largely on soft clay and sand rather than solid bedrock. This kind of ground is notoriously unstable, and over centuries it can slowly liquefy under the sheer weight of stone temples, monuments, and harbor infrastructure. Modern geological studies, including work published by researchers such as Jean Daniel Stanley of the Smithsonian Institution, suggest that a combination of factors doomed the city. Gradual land subsidence, rising sea levels, and possibly a series of earthquakes and tsunamis triggered soil liquefaction, causing entire districts to sink beneath the waterline over an extended period rather than in one single catastrophic night. This slow-motion disaster stands in contrast to the popular imagination of a city swallowed instantly, the way Atlantis is often portrayed in fiction. Plato's account of Atlantis, described in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, describes a sudden and violent submersion, and many researchers believe that Plato's story may have been inspired, at least in part, by real Mediterranean geological events. Even though Atlantis itself has never been definitively located and remains philosophical allegory as much as history, Thonis-Heracleion offers something different and arguably more powerful than legend, verifiable proof that ancient cities really did disappear beneath the sea, complete with names, inscriptions, and material culture that can be dated and studied. Among the most striking discoveries were massive stone stelae bearing identical texts in different scripts, effectively serving as ancient bilingual records that help confirm the city's identity beyond doubt. One such stela, commissioned by Pharaoh Nectanebo I around 380 BCE, explicitly named the city as Thonis, settling the long-standing debate among historians about whether Thonis and Heracleion were separate settlements or, as it turned out, two names for the very same place. This kind of discovery illustrates something important about archaeology. It does not simply confirm what we already believe. It frequently overturns it, revealing that ancient texts long dismissed as exaggeration or myth were, in fact, describing real geography with startling accuracy. The temple of Amun-Gereb, the city's central religious structure, once stood as the site where pharaohs came to receive their divine right to rule from the god Ammonius. Divers found evidence of ritual objects, bronze incense burners, and gold jewelry scattered near the temple's foundations, suggesting the sanctity of the site persisted for centuries before its final decline. Nearby, archaeologists identified a network of canals that once connected the city to the Nile itself, giving Thonis-Heracleion its economic power as the primary customs checkpoint to which Greek traders had to pass before entering Egypt. Every ship arriving from the Aegean was required to stop there, and this monopoly on maritime traffic transformed the city into one of the wealthiest ports of the ancient Mediterranean world for hundreds of years. Yet wealth and religious significance could not protect the city from the slow geological forces working beneath it. By the 2nd century BCE, parts of the city were already showing signs of sinking, and by the 8th century CE, most of what remained had disappeared beneath the waves entirely, according to the archaeological dating of the site's final layers. Alexandria, founded nearby by Alexander the Great in 331 BC, gradually eclipsed Thonis-Heracleion as Egypt's dominant port, hastening its decline even before nature finished the job. In this sense, the city's disappearance was not simply an act of catastrophe, but also a story of shifting power, changing trade routes, and the slow erosion of relevance that so often precedes physical destruction. What makes this discovery resonate so deeply with modern audiences is not only its scale, but its implications. If a city this significant, mentioned by name in ancient texts, home to temples and thousands of residents, could vanish so completely that its exact location was lost for over 1,000 years, what does that suggest about the limits of historical memory itself? Goddio's excavation team has continued working the site for over 2 decades, and new artifacts continue to surface with each expedition, offering fresh insight into daily life, religious practice, and trade in the ancient delta. Some of these findings, including beautifully preserved statues of Egyptian deities like Isis and Osiris, have since toured internationally in exhibitions, allowing the public to view firsthand what was once thought lost forever. Thonis-Heracleion is far from the only submerged settlement to capture public fascination. Off the coast of southern Greece lies Pavlopetri, believed to be one of the oldest submerged towns in the world, with structures dating back roughly 5,000 years. Unlike Thonis-Heracleion, Pavlopetri appears to have been abandoned gradually as sea levels rose following the last ice age, offering archaeologists a rare window into Bronze Age urban planning, complete with streets, courtyards, and tombs laid out with remarkable precision. In the Caribbean, the sunken city of Port Royal in Jamaica presents yet another type of underwater catastrophe entirely, having been struck by a devastating earthquake in 1692 that plunged much of the city into the sea within minutes. A disaster documented extensively in contemporary British colonial records and studied since through structured excavation projects beginning in the 1950s. Each of these sites tells a different chapter of the same broader story, one in which human ambition to build near water, for trade, for agriculture, for access to the sea, comes into direct tension with the restless nature of the earth itself. Coastal cities have always existed on borrowed time in a geological sense, vulnerable to earthquakes, rising waters, and the slow subsidence of soft ground beneath monumental architecture. Modern climate science adds a sobering layer to these ancient stories, as researchers studying present-day sea level rise increasingly look to historical examples like Thonis-Heracleion to understand how coastal communities respond, or fail to respond, to environmental change over long timescales. There remains a temptation, understandably, to romanticize these lost cities as mystical, almost mythological places wiped out by forces beyond comprehension. The reality uncovered by decades of careful archaeological work is, in many ways, even more compelling. These were not places of magic, but of engineering, commerce, and religious devotion, built by real people who could not have foreseen that the very ground supporting their temples and homes would eventually give way beneath them.